Good evening, everybody. Thanks for coming. This is the residential. If you want to know where you're supposed to be, this is a residential rental inspection program that Clarksville's going to roll out next year. We have 2 meetings. The next meeting, if you know some people that have heard some things that you want them to hear, they can come for our next meeting, which is actually November 10th. It'll be the same time, 6:30 to 7:30. Anticipate this, our presentation will take anywhere from 20, depending on how things go, 20 minutes or 30 minutes, and then we'll have a question and answer session right after. We're going to try to get out of here at 7:30. Okay. A couple of things before we really get going. I want to go through and get some housekeeping things taken care of. If anybody needs the restroom is out this door right here. Okay. When you go out here, make a right turn. You go down right by the entrance of the steps. There's the restroom right over there, and the drinking fountain as well. Just in case there's an emergency here, you know, if you hear a fire alarm or anything else, please exit these 2 doors over here, go out and stay in the parking lot so we know where everybody is. Okay. We'll do a head count so we make sure that we don't lose anybody along the way. Okay. Going along with the rest of it, I do want to introduce our team. My name is Rick Bard, Building Commissioner. This is Kimberly Newby, the inspector with the residential program. And this is Amy Eversole, who is the county attorney. So with that, I want to let you know the real purpose of this program is we want to explain how this program is going to be administered. We're going to answer as many questions as we possibly can, and we're going to kind of give you the government or the time frame of this, timeline of this. So with that, I'm actually going to turn it over to Amy to kind of describe and go through it, the timeline of the ordinance and the...
Yeah, we'll start the presentation if someone could give the lights.
Oh, yes, let me get those. I'm sorry? Yeah, if you would, thank you. If you kind of hold your questions, there should be another space on your handout there. If you haven't got a handout, there are handouts as well as the ordinance over on the table over here. And you can write your questions down. It'll go a lot smoother if you can just kind of get your questions down and then write when we're done with the presentation.
Okay, on April 19, 2022, Town Council adopted ordinance 2022-G05, which added a new subchapter to the Town Clarksville building regulations, which is this program, created this program, and it's known as the Residential Rental Property Registration and Inspection Code. And this was authorized by statute. Indiana Code Title 36, Article 1, Chapter 20, enables local governments to regulate residential leases through registration and inspection programs.
Okay, like I had indicated before, the goals of this, there are very specific goals. They are in the presentation, and I can't memorize everything, so I'm just going to go over it with you. It's to, the most important thing is to improve the safety. It's improve the safety and quality of life. To improve the avenues and dialogue between tenants and landlords. Minimize code enforcement actions and thus fines. A positive outlook in the region and around for rental property and community, and increase property values. During the course of the last 7 years, one of the other parts of the building department is also code enforcement. About 25% of our code enforcement cases are associated with rental property. Of those cases, I would say probably 90% is associated with miscommunication. If there was a good dialogue between the tenants and landlords, we would probably have a lot less tension and probably a lot better rollout, and I think the landlords would be better as well as the tenants. Are you guys, does everybody can hear us good enough?
No.
No?
Where's this?
No.
Okay, so my name's Kimberly. Can everybody hear me better now? Ooh, okay. So applicability, what properties are subject to this program? Okay. So we have residential rental units, residential rental unit communities, common areas as far as like parking lots, stuff like that. There are some exceptions. Non-residential properties, including commercial and industrial, hotels, motels, bed and breakfast, short-term residential units, so it's less than 30 consecutive days to the same tenant. Yeah. Owner-occupied residential units, rental units. So a note on that one is only the unit that is occupied by the owner is exempt.
Okay, so I'm going to go over some of the definitions that will come up later or that she already talked about, just for clarification, some of the more complicated ones. So a professional real estate manager, this will come into play later when we get into the inspection process and the registration process, is an individual partnership, corporation, or limited liability company satisfying the requirements to manage real estate set forth in Indiana Code 2534.1-3-2, and there's no statutory definition for residential or for professional real estate manager. Most of the definitions in the ordinance are pulled directly from statutes, but this reference came from the statutes, but there was no definition. But this cited statute sets out the requirements for leasing, renting, and managing real estate, including licensing and exceptions to the licensing requirements. Determination of whether someone qualifies as a professional real estate manager for the program will be made at the time of registration, which we'll get into later, which will be on the portal, and there will be like yes and no questions to, like if you think someone qualifies, to put in their qualifications or how you think they're exempt, and it'll be determined at that time. Okay, residential rental unit is a structure or part of a structure that is used as a home, resident, or sleeping unit by one individual who maintains a household or two or more individuals who maintain a common household or any grounds, facilities, or area promised for the use of a residential tenant, including an apartment unit, a boarding house, a rooming house, mobile home space, a single or two-family dwelling. So a unit by definition includes the grounds and facilities associated with the actual dwelling unit. And then Kimberly had mentioned a residential rental unit community, which is the next definition. Okay, so that is one or more parcels of contiguous real property upon which are located one or more structures containing rental units. If the combined total of all rental units of the structures is 5 or more units, and the rental units are not occupied solely by the owner or the owner's family. So if the units are on more than one parcel, they have to actually be touching to qualify as a residential rental unit community. And if there's less than 5 total units, the property doesn't qualify. Why this is important is rental unit communities can all qualify, they all get registered as one registration. Whereas if they don't qualify, they would have to have separate individual registrations. And we'll get into that a little more.
Okay, so overview of requirements. Okay, so hazardous conditions, obviously immediate notification. A registration, initial registration to be completed on or before January 13th of next year. That is renewed annually. So every year you'll have that registration. Inspections are scheduled upon registration. So when you register, that's when we will start scheduling inspections on your units. Each individual unit will be inspected every 3 years. So we might be at your complex, if you have a larger complex, we might be at your complex every year, but each individual unit is every 3 years. Hazardous conditions. Immediately notify the building commissioner of hazardous conditions including fire, flood, interrupting electrical or water services longer than 4 hours, sewage backup, other health hazards. Generally, these are serious conditions that endanger the health and safety of your residents. And registration. Single registration for each residential rental unit or the entire residential unit community. So rental property registration application is submitted electronically. Payment is $5 registration fee, $5 for the entire rental unit community, or it's $5 for each unit that's not part of the community. That's valid for 1 year, and like I said, it's to be renewed annually. Let's see. Newly created established rental units. Those are, so new ones are to be registered prior to a tenant. Transfer of ownership. New owners can complete an initial registration within 30 days of purchase. Change of registration. So there's no fee required, it's just information only. If any of the following occur, the owner shall submit and change registration for the electronically to the town within 30 days. So if you change professional real estate manager, if you change contact information for the manager, landlord, professional real estate manager, or if you change the number of residential units in the residential unit community, those things will require you for a change of registration. That's you.
Okay, we're going to go through what is routine versus non-routine. Go ahead, just go ahead and keep doing it. Okay. So routine inspection, like Kim discussed earlier, we're going to be doing an inspection of each dwelling unit once every 3 years. To explain that, let's assume you have a complex that's got 30 units. We'll inspect 10 of those the first year, 10 the second year, and 10 the third year. So kind of give you an idea how that's going to run. We're not going to inspect them all. And it just makes it a lot easier for you. And kind of gives you an idea by the time the second year, by the third year, then it becomes pretty smooth. Okay? If the office of the building commissioner has reason to believe that it receives complaints, well, then we're going to get into a non-routine inspection. Okay? So that's if we get a call from a tenant, or even from you yourself, from the landlord who gives us a call, indicating they've got some problems. That would be a non-routine inspection, and it actually falls outside of the purview of this program if it is a code enforcement issue. Give you an idea who conducts the inspection. The regular schedule will be done by the town. Each unit, dwelling unit, will be $200 fee, and the third-party inspection, if they follow the statutory requirements, there's no fee. So, what's inspected? The one before the. Okay. I want to make sure you know that this is not a building code inspection. The ordinance is very specific of what we're going to inspect. Okay, we're going to inspect electrical supply and electrical systems. So we're going to go through, look at the panel box box, make sure that it's properly labeled, that it's working, it's in good working function. And we're gonna check the receptacles to make sure that the covers are on, everything is in place. We're gonna check the plumbing systems. So that's going in to see if there's leaks, okay? That, you know, everything works the way it's supposed to from a plumbing standpoint. Things that you don't see in the background, or maybe you may have some problems with odors. We've got to make sure the venting process works properly. Okay. Water supply systems, including hot water. You are required as a to supply hot water to all facilities to make sure that the hot water heater is properly working. Okay. Heating, ventilating, and the air conditioning equipment. We'll be checking your HVAC system, make sure that it's properly functioning, that it works properly, that it's properly ducting, that we have proper air returns and everything else. And this would be by your lease. A lot of people don't realize you are not required to provide air conditioning. You are required to provide heat. But if your lease has the fact that you're going to have air conditioning, then that is a requirement. Bathroom and toilet facilities, we're going to make sure that everything works properly in there. We will be looking for mold and mildew as well. Doors, windows, stairwells, and hallways. Okay, so I'm going to split this up a little bit. There's all common areas. Some places don't have common areas, some places do. If you have a common area where you may have 4 dwelling units in the first floor, 4 on the second floor, something similar to that, and you've got stairwells, you walk into a vestibule, that is a common area. You're required to have smoke detectors in there. We'll have to have proper lighting, that the stairwell is properly secured, banisters and everything else. And all those common areas, sidewalks leading up to the facility to make sure that there's not uneven concrete. With that, then we'll go into the facility itself. We'll be checking to make sure you've got proper door hardware, that the door actually locks, and you have both a locking mechanism that it can be properly secured. Your windows are the same. You have windows and you have screens. Those are requirements you have to have. And the purpose of those screens, okay, is in the summertime, some people don't want to run their air conditioning, do not want to run their heater, okay, and they want to open those windows. They have to have those screens. And a lot of things they have to fit properly as well. One of the real safety things is that they have functioning smoke detectors. And now the structure of the room unit, that's all exterior. We'll be looking to make sure that you have proper guttering. You've got, again, sidewalks. Your roof is in good shape and everything. It's an outside exterior walk. Actually, you would probably want that anyway. It'd be a second eye that would help you guys.
Okay, we had talked about whether the town inspects or whether a third party inspects. Before I go into this, I wanted to comment the checklist, if you will, on the last slide that's in the ordinance. That came directly from the statute. That will not change. Those are the items that are required to be inspected regardless of who performs the inspection. And they can't be modified. Okay, so if there's a rental unit that is managed by or is part of a rental unit community that does have a professional real estate manager, like we spoke about earlier, you could possibly have a third-party inspection rather than have the town do it if you would prefer to do that. The requirements are during the previous 12 months, the rental unit has been inspected or is part of a rental unit community that has been inspected by or for the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development, the Indiana Housing and Community Development Authority, or another federal or state agency, or a financial institution or insurance company authorized to do business in Indiana. And the inspection has to be performed by a qualified inspector, which is a registered architect, a professional engineer, or someone who holds a valid, unexpired, nationally recognized code organization certification as a commercial building inspector. So the inspection report must not be more than 12 years old at the time it's submitted to the town. So if you've had an inspection within 12 months, like when this program rolls out, then if your unit is up for inspection, you can submit that and it will still be good for 12 months. And the written inspection report has to cover all of those items on the checklist that we went over on the last slide, and it has to just be delivered to the town on or before the due date when the inspection is due by the town. And like we discussed earlier, it's valid for 3 years, regardless of if the third party inspects or if the town inspects, are all good for 3 years.
It's real hard to see up there, but as Kim had discussed earlier, the registration fee is an annual fee. It's $5 per, it's actually per parcel, if I'm correct. Is that right?
The $5 registration? Well, unless they're part of a community. If they're a community, even if they're on separate parcels, as long as they're adjacent, as long as they're touching, and there's more than 5 units and they qualify, then there's only the $5 for all of it. Yes.
Okay. So it'll be $5 annual fee, and then the inspection fee itself will be $200 per unit. If there is a requirement for a second unit, it'll be $300. And each inspection thereafter will be an additional $300. Now, if it's done by a qualified third-party inspector, there is no fee that you would have. You just have to turn in the report.
Not to the town your inspector may have.
Right. Okay. You can discuss this with your attorney, but under the IC 36-120.2, payments and fees are assessed by the political subdivision states. And I can't read this, but there are exceptions. The exception provided in subsequent section B, or subparagraph B, the owner of running unit is assessed any fee by the political subdivision pertaining to the rental unit may, 1, notify the tenant of the rental unit and the assessment fees, and 2, the requirements of tenants of the rental unit to be reimbursed by the owner of the payment of these fees. And, paragraph B, tenants of the rental unit may not be required to reimburse the owner of the rental unit for the fees assessed by the political subdivision relating to the construction of a rental unit, such as the building permit fees. I know that's not as real, I said. That's why you have a copy.
Actually, before we go on, Rick, could you talk a little bit about the re-inspections and, like, you said for each additional inspection of $300 and kind of explain what a re-inspection is?
Okay. So after we've done the inspection, a report will be submitted. You'll get each dwelling unit will get a report. Okay. If it's required, if there will be deficiencies or non-deficiencies. It's pretty straightforward. If there's anything of the deficiencies that do require us to come back to verify that it's taken care of, that would be considered a re-inspection. Most of those would be life safety issues. Some of them we may be able to take care of right when we're there. We do encourage when we're doing the inspection that the landlord or a representative landlord be present during that inspection. The tenant, that's up to the tenant if they do want to be there.
Inspection report and inspection certificate. So regardless of who performs the inspection, a written inspection report will be issued to the owner verifying that each of the items have been inspected. Upon confirmation of a a valid, unexpired registration, a payment of all fees, and completion of the inspection report with no deficiencies, the town will issue an inspection certificate for each unit. This is valid for 3 years. Generally, a valid, unexpired inspection certificate can be transferred to a new owner. There are no exceptions in the ordinance. There are, sorry. Subject of, we can revoke it after a hearing, after notice and a hearing under certain circumstances set forth in the ordinance. If in the course of the inspection a violation of the state law or town codes are discovered, those will be handled through applicable ordinances or through the unsafe building law. Do you want to say anything on that?
Okay, so. Okay, where deficiencies are, if we're doing the inspection and we find a building code violation, it will not be handled through a residential inspection program. It will actually be handled by code enforcement. Give you a perfect example. Let's say we get in and we're looking at your furnace and there is a installation problem with that furnace. And I'm just going to go ahead and say that as we look at it, the plenum is not quite adjusted or fitting correctly or anything like that. We would give you the opportunity to fix it, but it would fall under a code enforcement issue, and it would not be covered under this program. Okay, so that's pretty much in a nutshell. I know that you've got a lot of questions, or you should have a lot of questions, and we're here to answer those questions. One thing that we didn't cover in here that I do want to go ahead, everything that we do on this, yeah, go ahead, John, thank you. Everything in this program will be, it's all going to be administered through an electronic portal. We have a current program that we currently use called SmartUp, and we will provide that information, and you will be able to go online and register them, all the parts of the program. A couple of things that is not on here, you're probably going to ask how we're going to roll out who's going to do it, how we're going to get this all taken care of. You'll be notified when we're going to do the inspections. Okay, we'll give you plenty of notice so you can notify your tenants. We do understand that there's going to be some certain tenants that will not be able to do that. We just have to, we're going to do 30 units in a dwelling unit. There's going to be a few that we just cannot do that. We understand that. But it does give you that time. We will provide you a letter, okay, that you will be able to download off the portal, that you will be able to send to your tenants, notifying them that we're going to be doing an inspection. Those are just some of the other things that may have come up that was not part of this presentation. Questions? And we do have a mic up here, so we can hear you and everything else.
Make sure, Tom.
So help yourself. Any questions? Gotta ask some questions.
Make sure, Tom.
Any questions?
This is Kevin Bain. He's the town manager.
Okay, yeah, I have a question, a couple questions. First one, when you're talking about the third-party inspections, you said that if, like, the U.S. Department of Housing or Urban Development or other government agencies inspect, so if we accept Section 8 and those are getting inspected by Section 8, can we count that as the inspection?
Yes, you can.
Okay, that's great. And then, okay, so that was that. My other question is if we do not utilize a third party and we have deficiencies, can we submit pictures and or documentation that repairs have been made in lieu of re-inspection, so we don't have to pay the re-inspection fee?
I guess it would depend on what it is, I guess.
Yeah, for the most part, if it can be documented by photos, that would be fine, to avoid the re-inspection fee. I should ask the question, so you can avoid that
Yes,
re-inspection
that's
fee.
$300, so. And then, I guess my other question, you said you guys were gonna do this through like an app or software program. Do you guys actually have like the template of what the inspection is gonna consist of, so that if we do utilize third party, we can kind of mimic what you guys are using?
Like a checklist for.
Yeah, we'll have a checklist for you. I don't want to back up. Kevin mentioned something about photos. If it's a life safety issue, you're asking a question with pictures. If it's a life safety issue, no, we would have to come back for that.
Okay.
Okay. But, yes, I'm sorry, I went right.
The template, yeah.
A template, we will provide that template, yes.
Yeah, if they don't already have it, they may have one.
Right, yeah.
Okay. Do you have something?
Did I understand it was $200 per apartment per inspection?
It's $200 per dwelling unit.
And that's every 3 years or each year?
That would be once every 3 years.
Okay. Did I read the paper you was going to have 2 inspectors on all those apartments I see in Clarksville?
Yes,
What a miracle. You must be per apartment.
we are.
2 inspectors? And the landlords will pay for those 2 inspectors?
Yes. Well, I mean, they're not.
2 inspectors can cover all those apartments?
There's-
Oh, that'd be a miracle. Putting the
Well, we'll go through it right now. I'll be more than happy to explain it to you. Because,
Wow.
there's roughly 3,300 dwelling units in Clarksville. As it stands today, 3,300.
I just will make one other comment. Some of my renters said they didn't want you coming in and checking how they live. And another thing, they said, sounds like Clarksville wants to be your parent or your guardian, taking care of you and taking care of the renters. Now, that's what they said. But anyway, who's next?
I don't need that. I don't need that. You go ahead. Everybody will go hear me. So if the Section 8 inspector is just a Section 8 office person, and they don't have to be a professional engineer, they don't have to be all those things?
They do have to qualify. They do have to be a qualified inspector under the statute, that's set by statute.
Okay. So most Section 8 inspections are not gonna qualify because they're not.
Yeah, they have to meet the statute. Okay?
And they still have to meet everything that we would inspect.
I understand. I just wanted
Yeah,
to
but they
clarify,
have
'cause
to-
most Section 8 inspectors are not professional engineers, are not that list, and do not have the training or anything like that. And I was just making sure that we were following the same page.
Okay.
Well, I think if they were a building inspector, I don't know if they would be that, but that would be accepted, right?
They would have to take a building course to be a building inspector.
Yes.
And Section 8 does not require that.
Okay.
And that is in the statute. If you would read through that, it does discuss what is,
The ordinance.
it does discuss what is in there.
Go ahead. Will you be publishing the results as you go along, and what's the protocol for reevaluating this program on an ongoing basis to revise anything associated with it?
Okay, when you say public.
When you say publicize, what do you mean publicize?
Just to see what the results, I don't know whether you're non-conforming, but they say deficiencies, if those will be like minor, major, just to see what they, because let's say if you had zero deficiencies or non-compliances, it would almost be a program that you'd have to say, should we even have it, kind of like the vehicle exhaust testing over in Louisville and all the cars, with newer cars and less pollution. And so part of it would just to see what the results are. I mean, I'd be interested to see, you know, to help validate and then evaluate the program.
I'll feel that one. Having been in 2 communities who rolled out a similar program, I can tell you that although we did not perform an evaluation to see if the program needed to continue, the number of re-inspections and the number of violations almost dictated that the program be maintained. And it's unfortunate. I came from a college town and a non-college town, and I can tell you in the college town we had more problems. But both places the results of the inspections on a continual basis necessitated the continuance of the program. Now, are we going to post the results of the inspections per property? No. It's not like a health department inspection that you might see that their food service inspection is on the window. We will not be posting that information.
Did it answer your question?
Thank you, Rick. I have a threefold question, sort of. So with the residential, and it pertains to residential lease agreements, that is typically private between the landlord, owner, or the tenant. So my question first is, how do you discern, are you able to, I guess, gather those leases per rental unit community or rental unit to discern what is tenant versus landlord responsibility? As it comes to your inspection, would you do that? Would you perform that before the inspection is performed?
One, you are absolutely correct. The contract between you and your tenants is completely private, and we will not look at any, we're not collecting, we're looking at any lease agreements. We would put the deficiencies in that, and that would be, because you will get the report, okay? The report is actually coming to the landlord and it's not coming to the tenant. So that inspection report would be with you. One of the items, and I do know some of the items that do come up from time to time, is smoke detectors. I think for the most part, when a tenant moves in, you guys do a walkthrough, there's smoke detectors where they're supposed to be and everything else. A year later, we come in, we go in and we look at it, and there's 3 smoke detectors missing. I think the way most contracts are written is that they're there, and it's up to the tenant at that particular point in time to maintain that smoke detector. Okay, if it fails, you may replace it, but if it's missing, it's up to the tenant. Those are some of the things, you know. Is that similar to what you're talking about?
Yes, and just recently we dealt with code enforcement in Louisville, and one of the instances reported back, there was a laundry list, but one of it was carpet, and that is definitely a concern of qualified property managers, owners, whatever that may look like, when it comes to tenant, regular wear and tear, if you will, versus absolutely not acceptable carpet. So the resident in particular had damaged the carpet because it was pet damage or something of that nature, can't exactly remember the details. So then we, as owners or, the property manager, were required then to replace it upon our cost and without, again, review of the lease, and that's, tenant damage. Then how do you handle those types of situations? Because I know this is different than code enforcement, so I'd like to see where that gray line kind of stands.
If you notice, carpeting is not on the list.
Okay.
That is
You know
not.
if it was included in the structure?
No, it is not. That is not, carpeting is not part of that.
Okay.
Holes in the wall, okay, unless it's through the next unit, which I hope that doesn't happen. But no, though, painting, damaged walls, things like that, that is not part of this program. Again, the list, and you see that list is very specific on that list.
So to caveat onto your question, if there's a hole in the carpet and it is a safety issue for the tenant to trip and fall, same thing with linoleum, same thing with a cabinet countertop. If it is a safety issue, then it can be dealt with. And a good example, again, pulling from my history, I had a landlord who actually used the program to help weed out bad tenants and help evict bad tenants, because we were getting calls from the tenant saying, I don't have a door on my bathroom. We get there, no, there's no door. The landlord says, I've replaced the door twice in 6 months. He keeps kicking the door down. I'm not replacing the door. In that case, we work with you as the landlord, because if the tenant's tearing it up, then it's the tenant's responsibility, and we can document that for you to help in any legal action you would take. But there has to be documentation that you provided the door, that they destroyed it. So if somebody destroys something, it's in your best interest to report it and say, look, my tenant is tearing up my unit. Please don't hang me out to dry because of something they are doing in my unit. So the program can work in your advantage against bad tenants.
Yes, I see. Last one, promise. So as it comes to the checklist, I saw the checklist, which is within the ordinance. We know that that's non-changeable. So with the written inspection, if owner elects or property manager elects to hire a third party, will that list be available to property manager or owner so that they have kind of a scope in order to provide to the contractor to say, this is what you'd be responsible for, will you sign this contract to inspect for us? Will that be provided to these persons within a reasonable amount of time?
Yes.
What was the process for determining the $200 inspection fee?
I'm sorry?
The process for determining the $200?
How did we determine it?
Correct.
Okay, so, we took what we anticipated what the total cost to roll this program out. That's from, the third-party, software that we have to provide, all the vehicles, all the administrative work, and the inspectors, the salaries. Okay.
So it's designed so it pays for itself, so to
It
speak?
is revenue, it's under our ordinance, we had to create a non-reverting fund. This program it has to self-support itself.
It has to be revenue neutral. It's basically the term that needs to be used there.
So, let's just go into the fact that 2 years after we do this, and there's a surplus of the fund, we may take the fund and lower it.
So yes, what if you had a unit down for remodeling and inspection time comes, do you still inspect it?
Is it under a lease at that particular point in time?
No, it's nobody.
Okay, so no one's in there.
Huh? Nobody's
No,
in it.
no one's been in there. We would work on it, but we probably would not. We would just remove that from the list.
It's only occupied units.
Yeah. There's only occupied units. That was one thing we never, and those are good questions. We didn't think anything about that, but yes.
How will you select the units? How are you gonna pick them?
Well,
I'll field this one. Having done the program before, generally, if you have one building, you will we'll work with you, and you can name the order you want them. And then from that point on, let's say you had a building that had 30 units. You're gonna get 10 inspections each year. You name the 10 that you want this year, next year, and the third year. And those are the ones that we inspect every third year. Now, in the event that one is out of service, being remodeled, then that year we only inspect 9. When that unit goes back in service, you should notify us. We'll come in and do the inspection of it. But the order in which the units are inspected is set up at the beginning. Now, in the event of a natural disaster, fire, earthquake, or something's destroyed, obviously we're going to have to come in and modify what that sequence is. But
you still pay the $200 for the remodel unit, even though nobody lived there?
if there's no inspection, there's no fee.
Right. Yeah.
I just wanted to ask, why is the re-inspection fee higher than the original inspection?
The goal is that when you get notification that the units are going to be inspected, that you go in and you do your own pre-inspection such that there are no deficiencies when our staff gets there. Unfortunately, history has shown, other communities in Indiana will say the same thing, that there are deficiencies, an inspection has to come back, and an inspection has to be made. I hate to say that is a penalty provision that's in there, but that's what it is. Our goal is such that you inspect the properties before we get there, you assure everything is right. When we come in, we verify that it's right, and you only have to have us in one time.
What's the minimum advance notice to provide before the inspection takes place?
I did not hear the question.
What's the minimal advance notice we will provide to a landlord of when we're coming in?
We're anticipating 45 days. That should give you ample time.
Yeah, what I want to know is, are we grandfathered in?
There, and I'm not sure what grandfather, there is no grandfathering in this. If you have a rental unit, you'll have to register.
Well, my understanding is we're already in, we're grandfathered in. Is that correct? You're not familiar with that? You're not familiar with the grandfather law?
I am familiar with grandfather law, but this is a new ordinance. All rental property is subject to.
What I'm asking, are we grandfathered in though? That's
No.
my understanding of the law. If you're already in, you're already grandfathered in. And you can't apply that law to you.
Yes.
Okay.
Good. You want to answer that?
If you wanted to submit like some, or have your attorney contact me, we could talk about it.
Okay. Another thing I want to ask you about is housing discrimination. Now, if they prove that, now in Stanton, Illinois, they prove housing and they prove discrimination, and they had reparations of $10 million, and each household got $25,000. So if we go down the road here and they prove discrimination against the city, against the town of Clarksville, would amount to reparations in amount of $50 to $100 million on down the road, because of the town of Clarksville discriminated against these minorities because they rent all these poor houses, see. My point is, would we be liable $50 to $100 million down the road through reparations? Since they already enacted that in Stanton, Illinois, that's the law of the land now.
Give me the direct follows. I'm sorry, I'm struggling with this one.
We are inspecting the unit itself, the piece of property, the real estate. When we go into a unit, we don't care if it's a male living there, female living there, if it's African American, if it's Indian, if it's white, if it's Hispanic. We don't care. We're looking at the unit. We will treat all units the same regardless of who is living in it, regardless of who the landlord is. We are looking at the physical unit itself.
But you left out all the commercial units. See, all the commercial units are their rentals too. They're rental units, people rent that. And really, the commercial units are the big polluters of the land.
Okay, this program is residential rental. It is not commercial rental.
It's not commercial.
It
Okay.
is not commercial. This is strictly residential
Would
rental.
that be considered discrimination though?
But we can address that.
Commercial units are handled under commercial property code, okay? If, for example, Joanne Fabrics is moving from where they were located over next to Dick's Sporting Goods, moving over here in the same complex by Best Buy. Before they can open in that facility, Rick's crew staff is in there doing an inspection, and they will get a certificate of occupancy. That is their inspection for a commercial unit. To answer your question, yes, we do inspection of commercial property, and we do it whenever they move into a facility.
And on top of that, that is by statute, okay? All Class 1 structures are inspected, okay?
That includes all plumbing. The fire marshal comes in, they inspect it to make sure everything is done. They have to check the fire alarm pull system. They have to check if there's a call-out system to notify 911 of a call, or 911 of a fire. It is a more thorough inspection than you would ever see in one of your residential rentals.
I agree with that, but it's on the record now that it's a possibility of housing discrimination. It's on the record. So down on the road, somebody might file a court case that it's housing discrimination, and the town might have to pay reparations between $50 and $100 million. This reparation was paid in Stanton, Illinois, for discrimination that happened 40 years ago. And they're paying now, and it's the law of the land now.
Okay. We will look into, it's Stanton or Staunton? There's two different ones, because I come from Illinois.
I understand it's Stanton.
Okay.
$10 million for reparations for minorities.
Okay, we'll have legal check into that.
So your 45-day routine, that's a routine inspection. That's not the non-routine inspection, right?
That is correct. That's just
absolutely-
routine. That's for this inspection program.
Good.
When's the first inspection going to take place?
Good question.
It's a very good question. Right now, the program is to require registration 30 days, or actually by January 13th, is to have the program, rolled out. That's when you have it. Now, I will let you know that we are working with a third-party software company, okay? So, we don't have full control of when it is. We're anticipating January 13th. It may be January 30th, but no earlier than January 13th would be the day you register.
Then
Okay.
45 days.
And then 45 days after that would be the earliest inspection.
There will be no penalties if our system is not up and running and doesn't allow you to register. We can't start the program until we are fully functional, and we have written, or they're in the process of writing all the forms and getting those to that third-party provider so that they can incorporate it into the software.
And the only option is online. Somebody just pick come to the town hall and.
It'll all be online. You can come on in, and we do have a computer in here, and we will be more than happy to help you go through that registration process.
We have a computer in the lobby of his office suite that allows you to get on and do it if you do not have a computer to do it at home or at your office.
And it's just like a standard kiosk, you'd be able to go ahead. Now, I'll throw this out, maybe it'll help answer some other questions too. If you want one-on-one sit down and go over this, if we didn't answer all your questions and you see some of this, we'll be more than happy to, you can schedule a meeting with us, and we'll be more than happy to sit down with you and go through this program. Okay. We're offering it, this is informative, and we want, again, open communication is what we're interested in.
It sounds like some of the programs in the development phase, but is the home inspection process complete, all that documentation? Like, when can we see that?
The ordinance, everything that we follow is through that ordinance. If you look at that ordinance, it's all in there. And we have to write our program, all the inspections and everything in accordance with that program. We are governed by that ordinance. And that ordinance has been tried and tested at the state level. So if we fall outside that, then therefore, that's one of our problems. We have to make sure we are following everything by that ordinance, because that has been approved by the state. Yeah, we did leave, by the way, business cards over there. You're more than welcome to grab one of those cards. You can call. You can call Kimberly, you can call me, okay? I prefer you to call me, I hate to say this, but I prefer you to call me on my mobile. Because I am not in my office as much as I should be, but I always have my mobile phone on. I'm in this office at 5:30 in the morning, and I typically don't leave till 6 in the evening. So if there's needing to get a hold of me, you should be able to get a hold of me during that period of time.
And
please don't call me before 3 a.m.
The list of the inspection, the contents are on page 7 of the ordinance, if you have a copy of it.
Yes, ma'am.
I just want to make sure I understand it. I just have one rental home in Clarksville. I'm going to pay $200 a year, and you're going to inspect it every 3 years.
No, I'm glad you asked that. So this is very easy to calculate. You will pay $200 on the year of the inspection.
Okay.
Okay, so let's just go ahead. You've got one unit. You'll pay $15 over the 3-year period for the registration fee, and $200 one time over that 3 years. So you'll have $245, okay, that you would pay over that whole entire 3-year period.
215.
215, I lied. Okay, 215. Can't grow. 215. Okay. So if you would take that 215, so if you want to know these costs, I mean, we're not trying to hide, you can take that $215 and divide by 36, and that would tell you what this program is going to cost.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Yes.
Okay.
Thank you.
I'm glad you asked that, because it's.
You know how many towns in Indiana are currently administering or in the process of implementing?
I don't have the exact number. I think it's less than a half a dozen, but I do know that there are several communities that have contacted us about this program. Several.
When the statute was written, there were, I believe, and correct me if I'm wrong, Rick, I think there were 5 programs that were in effect by municipalities before the state came in and put some restrictions on what could be inspected in an inspection program. A lot of those inspection programs were in university communities to protect the students. Since then, I know there's been a handful of others that have been approved by the state to do the program. We are one of those. So I think the number may be closer to a dozen.
Thank you.
A runner of mine said, what you could have done better for them was have a complaint line. He won't fix my air conditioning, he won't provide hot water, and have an inspector come out and work with getting him a plumber or whatever to get him in compliance, have a complaint line.
Yeah, well, we do. Okay, we actually do. It's called code enforcement. Yes, we do. And that's why this program actually came up. Okay, you can go online right now if you have an issue. Okay, you can put it in. Okay, you can be anonymous if you want as a tenant and put it in, because some of the complaints we get, and we probably have a lot more, but we have, I would say, in excess of 60 to 70% of the tenants don't want us, they hold back because they are fearful of retaliation by landlords. I'm not saying that's anybody in this room, but there are a lot of landlords, or a lot of tenants feel that they get retaliated against. But they do complain online, and they'll put an anonymous in. Okay, you can put your name in there or whatever.
You won't get 2 doors from me. 1 door, you're gone.
Yes.
Okay, so I have another question around the non-routine inspection. So you said a resident calls
you and reports an issue, and so every time they do that and you come out, now we're gonna be charged $60 for that? Because you know these residents like to call on us for not necessarily just when they're mad at us or they owe us money.
A non-routine inspection is not part of this program. Well, okay, a non-routine.
A complaint-driven inspection, let's call it that,
Okay,
does not qualify as a need for a fee.
okay.
And it falls under code enforcement.
Okay, because it did say on here $60 per unit. That's why I was very unclear on that.
Okay.
But
Like if
Then I
it-
need to,
late in the program, I apologize.
okay,
But-
that will be taken care of. I
No,
apologize.
well, if your tenant, made a complaint and they showed up and it was just, they were trying to retaliate against you for something, and there was nothing to be addressed, there would be
Then
no
we wouldn't charge
fee.
you. But if there's actually a complaint made and there is if there's a complaint made and it is life safety, yes, we would have to charge that.
No, we are not. We are
Okay.
not.
We're gonna have to redo that.
Oh,
I would apologize. Thank you for asking. That is not what it's going to be.
Yeah,
Yeah, that is code enforcement.
that's what okay.
And I know a lot of the questions you have is associated with the cost of the program or the cost of the. We're not interested in trying to drive revenue with this program. We're again, this whole program is designed for life safety and for the quality of life. Okay, that's what this program, we're not interested, we do not charge, we rarely even fine people. That's not our intent. The fine is only out there to drive it when it's our last resort. We really want to work with the tenants, work with the landlords, and try to get this program. I hate to say it, we just want to get along. That's what we're trying. But again, this is really about safety and the quality of life. That's really what this program, and we're not interested in driving those costs. But the program does have to be revenue neutral. A non-routine inspection does not fall into this category. It falls under code enforcement. Is that helpful? Okay. Any other questions? Okay, with that, we'll go ahead, we'll close the meeting. Again, please grab one of our cards. You got any questions, don't hesitate to pick up the phone, give us a call. If you want, and you want to go on record, it's a lot easier. I've always said that if it's not in writing, it didn't happen. So if you put it in writing, you've got us, and we got you, okay? And again, we're more than welcome to sit down, I mean, if you want to do one-on-one with your facility, be more than happy. Okay, and then, again, we'll have another one on, if something happens you want to, or you using, we'll have another one November 10th at 6:30 in the same room. I do appreciate it, thank you. Thanks for attending.
Keep bringing quotes.